Welcome to the Bookers Alliance podcast, where we hold the pencil and the pencil is power. Coming at you right now is your host, Marky Mark, along with the man, the myth, the legend, Frank Donaldson. Join us as we discuss the ever-changing landscape of professional wrestling. So hang on tight, you jabronis, and enjoy the ride. Hey, welcome in, everybody. Thank you for joining today's episode of the Bookers Alliance podcast. Come on in the house, grab yourself a ringside seat, some popcorn, a gallon of gas, some Coke from the convenience store, whatever you got, because today's episode is all about automobile spots in the worlds of professional wrestling. Frank, how you doing, man?
Oh, I'm doing good. And so since we're going to do vehicles today, figured I'd be the only one over here having myself a Frosty. So since you're going to do the driving today, I'll be in the passenger seat. Yeah, absolutely. Got to have a sober driver driving. The other guy can do what he wants in the back seat. So I'm going to go ahead and get in the back seat here, crack me open a few cold ones. And we're going to talk vehicles and wrestling today.
All right. So a little known fact, y'all may not know yet. Me and Frank here, we're pretty much gearheads. We love cars, anything about cars. We got a pretty big auto show coming up this weekend in our area. So that was kind of the inspiration for today's episode. And there's been a pretty good bit of vehicles used within the world of professional wrestling.
Yeah, I mean, they work. You get a lot of car guys, like ourselves. You get a lot of wrestlers who are adrenaline junkies, like fast cars, like strong cars. Some of them just like big stuff, the opportunity to just ride and whatever. I mean, so it's a good mix. Wrestling fans and car guys kind of go hand in hand. It's like peanut butter and jelly.
I like that combination. That's a good combination. All right, so we're going to kick this off with Mr. Stone Cold Steve Austin and all of the vehicles that kind of he had, because he had our own subsection for our episode here. So let's start it off with the beer truck. That's the most synonymous one.
Yeah, definitely. I'll never forget him coming out and spraying, because you've never seen it before. One. For two, I've never seen a beer truck with a nozzle on it that sprayed beer like that. I mean, he was driving a delivery truck. I've seen many a delivery truck pull up into a grocery store, convenience store, whatever. I ain't never seen a guy pull out a nozzle and start spraying it, at 100 miles an hour, 200 miles an hour worth of pressure. I'd like to see it, but I've never seen that one. I'm still waiting on that, but somehow or another they pulled that one off for him.
Yeah, that one had a great image of Austin out there just spraying everybody down with the beer hose. Was it McMahon or Shane that was in the ring swimming?
That was Vince in there swimming.
Swimming in the beer.
Shane was holding on to the ropes for dear life, like he was drowning. Vince was just swimming right along in there,
along with everybody in the first 10 rows. Probably.
Yeah, everybody got wet that night. Nobody went home sober in the floor section that night. That's for sure.
Just imagine if you got pulled over. I swear, officer, I was at a wrestling show.
Yeah, you hope that was way before cell phones and video. So there was no way to have proof. So yeah, if you went home that night, I don't know. If you got pulled over, yeah, you got carded that day. You breathalyzers all around on that one.
So that's kind of the first of the category. The second one that comes to mind has to be the Zamboni that he drove down to the ring. About knocked the ring off of its platform.
Yeah, bailed right into the ring. Then he got up and ran right down the hood of the thing and jumped in the ring. I mean, heck of a visual. What else can you say about that? Just a heck of a visual. A lot of fun. I mean, a lot of times when they do wrestling, they're going to people's hockey arenas or basketball arenas. Most of them kind of share. So I'm sure there was just a Zamboni hanging around and somebody looked at it and said, "Hey, what do you think about that?" Put a couple good minds together and all of a sudden you got a Zamboni going down.
Yeah, I can imagine how the conversation went. "Steve, can you drive that?" "Well, hell no, but hell yes."
Yeah, it's got a steering wheel and a pedal. I'll figure it out. It'll work itself out.
So the next one that comes to mind is not one that he drove. However, it's one that he destroyed, and that was Vince McMahon's Corvette. He filled that thing full of concrete to where the windows busted.
Oh, yeah. I think I've heard somewhere else that wasn't a planned spot. They just had the windows up so the cement would go up there. It just so happened they would record, right at the right time when those windows burst. So, I mean, that also made a memorable visual that you just can't forget. All of a sudden, you see the windows just burst and cement just start pouring out of the sides of it. And Vince just standing there like floored, like he just couldn't believe what was happening. Watching a good quality Corvette just go to waste like that. I also remember sitting there like, what are we doing right now? Like, why? But when you got a fleet of cars, I guess you could let one go for the business. So he sacrificed one that night.
This one, I was present for in a way. This one happened in our hometown of Charlotte, where they blew up the DX bus.
There you go.
So we were in the arena, the cameras cut to the back, and you see Austin out there running his mouth, and you're going, oh God, what's he getting into now? What's he doing? Next thing you know, you see the bus and you figure out, you start putting two and two together, and then this huge just cushion wave just kind of through the arena. It's like, who hit me in the chest?
Right. What is this? What am I feeling right now?
But I got a friend that was on the Charlotte Mecklenburg Fire Department that night who was there, who kind of helped that bus blow up. And he said they did not shy away on the explosives.
Oh, I'm sure they did. I mean, WWE never had any problem with going out for pyro and things like that. But again, it's the visual. You got a television product. If you blow up a bus and it comes out looking like the exploded ring of death in AEW, then, you just let a fart in church. But, when you see fireworks go off and then you see a major explosion like that, I mean, that visual just sits in your memory forever. What was that, 25 years ago that it happened? And I mean, we're still talking about it, laughing at it today.
I still feel the shock.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, and again, it's a visual you're never going to get over. Just seeing it happen. I'm sure at some point in time you came home, rewatched it on TV, just like, wow.
Yeah.
Can't believe what I just saw here.
Like, we felt it, but I didn't know it did that.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, people being that close to it, things like that, that was also a shock. Normally, I don't think they would let that happen in 2023. Let's just put it like that.
All right, so let's transition away from Austin and let's move on to one of his funnier counterparts, that being Kurt Angle.
Okay.
So Kurt Angle had the infamous spot with the milk truck.
The milk truck.
A la Austin's beer truck, Angle gets a milk truck.
Yep. It went with his character. I remember hearing Kurt and later on saying that milk was just a mixture of powdered milk and water, but he said there was some milk in those bottles that he drank. And I remember him saying, right after he had to leave and get on a flight and didn't have time to clean up and shower and all that. And he said, the stench was just, ugh. And I'm sure the same thing was the people that got soaked in the beer truck. I'm sure all the people that got wet with that water powder mix, I'm sure they weren't too thrilled about it the next day either, as they were still smelling the remnants of that.
And that time, Austin was on the receiving end of that, correct?
He was a heel at that point. That's when he was with Vince McMahon. And Kurt Angle decided he was going to show them, so he drove his little red milk truck out. And somehow or another, again, they came out with this same hose. Again, I don't know where they're getting these fire hoses at on all these delivery trucks, but somehow or another they got it. And pow, here you go.
I remember, though, watching him scale the truck, and he almost busted. He almost didn't make it up the truck. Like, he slipped a couple times.
Yeah, that truck wasn't like the big delivery truck that they use for the beer bash. That was something that was a little delivery van or something. I think we saw it on Most Wanted Treasures when they were out trying to hunt it down.
Yeah,
that was just the company's little milk delivery van from back in the 50s or whatever it was. So, definitely wasn't meant to be scaled. I definitely don't think they ever intended to have a fire hose attached to it. But you alter it, you make it work.
All right, so let's move on to the next one. This one happened pretty recent, but definitely something we have never seen in the world of professional wrestling. Brock Lesnar and his tractor. That was one of the craziest spots I've ever seen.
Yeah, that was definitely different. I mean, we've seen a lot of things done with rings. You just mentioned a little bit ago the Zamboni hitting the ring, kind of shaking it, knocking it over a few feet. That was something, but I don't know if we've ever seen or will ever see a plow come out and lift a ring, 20 feet in the air?
Yeah, only a farm boy is going to pull that out.
Yeah, that ain't going to be a common thing. I mean, I remember when he drove it down there and then stood on it, he was cutting a promo. Remember, he chucked the mic at Roman, and Roman just casually stuck his hand out. Damn thing went right in his hand, and I remember watching it like, wait, did they CGI that, or how the hell did that happen? Roman was just like, yeah, it just kind of happened. This movie magic that just takes effect. But I thought that was going to be the end of it, right? I really thought that was the end.
Yeah.
When Brock kind of backed the thing up and, took it off back in the aisle, I'm like, all right, well, I guess, they drove a plow to the ring. Why not? When he got back in that thing and during the middle of the match, and all of a sudden he went and jammed it into the ring, and he did the same thing because he didn't get under the ring clear, if you remember the first time.
Yep.
He got under there a little bit and jammed the ring over, and I was like, whoa, wait a minute, this looks real dangerous, whatever's about to happen right now. Then all of a sudden you see that ring start lifting and Roman starts rolling backwards, and my goodness, again, the visual of it.
And we kept saying, though, you remember at the beginning of the event, we kept saying, why in the world is the ring? Why is it so wide around?
Yeah,
the ring?
they had
It
all
looked
these
weird.
trails in there, on the floor. And I'm like, they could have packed in 20,000 more people in here if they'd have filled in DC. Why did they do that? It never made sense until we saw that plow. And it's like, wait a minute. Okay, well, but again, I thought it was just to drive it to the ring, just to say we did.
Nah.
Yeah, no, we definitely got more than I bargained for out of that deal.
It's some pretty good visuals that I don't think either was or ever.
No, hopefully not. Hopefully not, because that really put the match on a twist after that.
Yep. Let's move on to Mr. Lie, We Cheat, We Steal, Mr. Eddie Guerrero. He had some great automobiles throughout the years in these lowriders.
Oh yeah, definitely. The lowriders were, they really fit his character. That was when lowriders and the hydraulics on the cars were really in style.
Yep.
And, that was just a thing. And Eddie being from Texas, I didn't really know it was a Texas thing, but
I always thought it was a Cali thing.
yeah, when Rey Mysterio started doing it, with the 619 and all that, it really kind of fit. But Ray kind of transitioned out to another story, and Eddie kept that all the way until the end. He drove those lowriders till the very end. And I mean, the way he, with his attitude, with his, lie, cheat, and steal and all that, it just kind of fit. So, you got comfortable with it after a while, and you're like, okay, well, this fits his character.
And what was cool with some of those cars is, being car guys, we know the car itself, the car's not that valuable. But the hydraulics and the paint jobs that were on those cars.
Oh, my God.
Dude, 50, 60, 70 grand easy on some of those cars.
That was one of those was on that Most Wanted Treasures this past season, too. And I think they ended up paying the guy hefty money for it. The guy that is still in pretty much the same condition as when they used it, 20 years before. And they had to pay him a nice hefty penny for it. I know he ended up making more than he said he bought it for. But again, it's something you're not going to find everywhere. Because they weren't using their own cars. They were just kind of renting these cars from local people that were in the area. And be able to track one down, get numbers that match and things like that. And for it to almost still be in the same condition. I mean, that's a piece of history.
Yeah, and in Rey Mysterio and Snoop, they kind of did the Eddie Guerrero car entrance this past WrestleMania. That was very cool for them to kind of do that throwback.
Yep.
And, what more fitting way to pay homage to Eddie?
Yeah, definitely. Remember, even Vicky Guerrero did one over in AEW where she did an entrance down there. It didn't bounce as much when Vicky was in it, though. I mean, I don't know the reason behind that, but, they couldn't get it to bounce just as much. But.
Well, we will go there.
Okay, just observing.
Observing there.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on to this one isn't a particular person's vehicle, but a vehicle that's been used over and over and over again, maybe just because of the availability of it, since it has to drive all the ring gear and stuff. But tractor trailers, 18-wheelers.
Yeah.
They're synonymous within the world of pro wrestling.
Yeah, there's always one around. I mean, like you said, they've got a fleet of them themselves, that they drive to every event where they're carrying camera crew, ring crew, all that other stuff. So if you need one, hey, you just kind of take those graphics off the side of it really quick and you can kind of make whatever you need happen.
So we've seen several different iterations of an 18-wheeler. One that comes to mind is Hogan trying to kill The Rock in the 18-wheeler.
Ran The Rock down when The Rock was in a car trying to leave off and they barreled into him or something like that. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, and, we've seen Vince McMahon, have an infamous spot with a tractor trailer or two.
Yeah.
That death by Vince McMahon, that was definitely, and he hit the trailer.
Yeah, I mean, he did something, that's for sure. They, barreled right under it and just, dangerous times they were playing around with. But again, it's their vehicles, they could kind of really do what they want with them.
Yeah, but they're also kind of multifaceted because you've had people like Mark Henry do a feat of strength by pulling the
pulling an
18-wheeler.
18-wheeler, which you never thought you'd see that.
And then Braun Strowman flipping an 18-wheeler.
Yeah, flip the cab of the truck over. Again, different feats of strength that you see, and it's like, man, how these guys are, when they say they're strong, they ain't joking around. When you can pull an 18-wheeler with the trailer on it, you're doing a hell of a lot of pulling. So
I've always looked at those spots though, and I went, really, like, is that real? Like, and then you see, like, I saw Braun Strowman, I think we went to an event, and when he stacked up against Brock, standing nose to nose, that dude's huge.
Yeah, when you look at him, you're like, oh, damn.
Okay, maybe they could flip an 18.
I don't know if maybe he didn't do it, but if anybody was going to do it, they damn sure picked the right guy to do it. Same thing with Mark Henry. I mean, when you stand next to him, he's like a bear.
Yeah.
So, when you see him put a couple straps on his back and really start, he was sweating like hell. So it isn't like he was just out there phoning it in. I mean, you can see Mark was putting work in. And all of a sudden you see a damn 18-wheeler with a trailer start rolling. There ain't nobody in the back of it pushing it. And you ain't going to shift it in gear. Not an 18-wheeler. You ain't going to shift it in gear without hearing the motor, without, running Mark over. Because, Mark was crawling. But, you're pulling an 18-wheeler.
Yep.
So there really ain't no way to fudge that one, unless you had 50 guys in the back of it pushing and God, osmosis was trying to think of the wheels to roll. So yeah, when you think of that stuff is real, but whew, my God.
So going from one big truck to another, monster trucks.
The monster trucks.
Monster trucks.
WCW played around with those monster trucks.
They had a few of them there.
Oh,
they had a NWO one. They had a Macho Man one. They had a Hogan
Giant
one.
had one.
Yeah, Sting had one, if I'm not mistaken.
The WCW, they really played in the monster truck world. WWE never really got into that, but
no.
WCW as a whole, if you were a top star over there, somehow or another, you got a monster truck. Monster trucks, they had race cars. I remember they had NASCAR race cars. WCW delved into a lot of out of the box thinking as far as vehicles and stuff went.
I remember even Goldberg had a monster truck.
Yep.
He had one in it, and it was called, before it was called Goldberg, it was called Maximum Carnage. And I remember the guy that drove that truck.
Spider-Man?
No. But the guy that drove that truck, he wound up winning I don't know how many world titles.
Wow.
That truck was really cool. But yeah, those are some big old trucks. But then there's been fashionable cars that's come through. You've had JBL and his limo.
Yeah.
With the big old bull horns on the front.
Big bull horns on the front. Oh yeah.
JBL will always be synonymous with that cowboy hat and that limo.
Oh yeah, with the big bull horns on it. if he wasn't, who is it? J.R. Ewing.
J.R. Ewing.
If he wasn't J.R. Ewing, basically taken out of the box, I wouldn't know who else he could be.
And of course, we already touched on this one, but Vince McMahon and his limos over the years, he died by limo. Yeah. His character died by limo.
Yeah, for a day. Yeah, he made it a day. Good job, Vince. Time.
Hey, all rich billionaires fake their deaths. So.
Yeah, at some point, I guess you got to, but read the room.
Yeah, seriously. Some prestigious Cadillacs have made the show there with Honky Tonk Man and his pink Cadillac.
Yeah, the pink Cadillac, which was actually a Diamond Dallas Page find that they had. Diamond Dallas made his WrestleMania debut at WrestleMania 6, driving the Rhythm and Blues down to the ring in a pink Cadillac.
Pink Cadillac.
I also remember Brock Lesnar putting an axe through the door of a Cadillac. Remember when who was Cadillac. It? The Stooges, the younger Stooges, but they had a Cadillac out there. I remember Brock putting an axe through the door, and I'm like, well, hell, I didn't know axes could cut those kind of cars. Oh, shit, I had to start shopping around again. Like, wait a minute. Can't have you coming to being able to get me with an axe. God.
Another synonymous Cadillac that made an appearance was Goldust and Piper.
Ah, yeah.
So you had Goldust and his gold Cadillac.
Had a gold Cadillac, and Roddy Piper chased him down in OJ's Bronco.
OJ's Bronco, of course.
All right. They even found the footage of OJ's slow but sure chase and aired that as though it was Piper chasing him down. And I think I even remember hearing Roddy Piper got to keep that Bronco at the end of that shoot. Yeah, came up that day.
Couple more that we got on our list here. I want to give a nod to Cena. Cena is also a gearhead like us. He's an auto aficionado,
big time,
and he's had some fabulous looking muscle cars that have made their way down ringside over the years. Matter of fact, I have seen his judge in person at the auto show one year in Charlotte.
Okay,
very, very, very cool car. He also he's a nut for like just one-offs too.
Yeah.
He's got some crazy small cars like a Mini Cooper and a couple other things.
Yeah, I see that. I think he had one of the Bond cars or something like that. Yeah, he's got an eclectic collection there. He's not just one size fits all. He kind of goes all over the place.
Yep. And the last one we're going to talk about here is the military vehicle that DX drove.
All right, the DX tank. That was a Jeep. with a big cannon on it somehow or another.
But that was probably one of the most synonymous storylines with DX in the invasion that they tried to do on WCW with the military vehicle, and how if they would have pulled that off, if they would have listened to Kevin Nash.
Oh God, if they had let them drive that thing right into
that would have been
remember
awesome.
Nash saying, he told him, let him drive it right to the rig. He said, and Eric Bischoff, even on his podcast, he said, now 20, 25 years, 30 years later, he's like, I definitely should have let them right in, because they would have been on our TV, because we wouldn't have let their camera crew in.
Yep.
We would have let them in. And then he was like, then we could have sent 50 guys from the back down there to rough them up a little. That would have made it, that could have been the end of WWF at the time. They really gambled on that. And just like they expected, WCW kept them out. Then they were able to go right back out to the fans and say, WCW locked us out. They're afraid of us.
Yep.
And next thing I remember Hall and Nash both said, we were right on the other side of that garage out there, just standing there like, open the door. Come on, open the door. They told him, they said, no, the bosses said no way.
Yep. So those are just some of the vehicles that we could talk about here on this episode. If you think of some, reach out on our social media platforms, drop us a line, tell us what you remember about some vehicles. There's definitely been some interesting things happen throughout the years. And of course, like Frank said at the beginning of the episode, cars and adrenaline and pro wrestling, it just goes hand in hand.
Oh, yeah. Just like drinking and driving. I mean,
no.
That's right. I'm in the back seat.
You're in the back seat, sir.
Let's get in the back seat. Have a couple.
Let me get Franco home, everybody. So with that, thank you for listening to today's episode, and we bid you adieu.
Yowie wowie.
Today's podcast was produced by SBP. You can find our podcast on all major podcast platforms. Also connect with us on our social media accounts. Search for The Bookers Alliance on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.